everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday. We'll get started in just a second here. Stephanie, feel free to say hello to anyone if you'd like. We're joined today by Stéphanie Solinas. Thank you for being here with us. We'll get started in just a minute.
And can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I will see you, but I won't see the other people.
Right, the attendees will not have their cameras on. And I will also have my camera off, but I'll be here present. I can still talk to you, and it'll just be you sharing your screen.
Okay, sounds good.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just a second. Thanks for joining us this morning. Just another minute or so. Hello, welcome. Oh, Stephanie, you're getting notes in the chat here. Salut from Michael Ali. Hi, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
All right, guys, just another minute or so, then we'll hop right in. Thanks for being here with us this morning. Hi, Jim. Got another note here, Stephanie, from Jim Gans. All right. So let's get started. Others will make it in as we continue forward. So hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Thursday morning or evening, depending on where you are. Stephanie, thanks for joining us from Italy. I'm Bailey Mizelle, and we're joined today by French artist and writer Stéphanie Solinas for an artist lecture. Stephanie, it's so good to have you today with us, especially since we've been planning this talk since Paris Photo, but also on such a momentous and wonderful occasion for your practice and your work. So many things going on. So thanks for having us and being with us today.
Thank you.
Before we get started, I'd like to extend a note of gratitude to PACALE's board of directors, membership, community partners, and sponsors. Thank you for your ongoing support and commitment to PACALE's growth, programming, and building our longstanding community. For a brief run of show, there'll be a 40 to 45 minute presentation by Stephanie, followed by an open conversation and Q&A moderated by myself. Please make sure to add your questions to the chat/Q&A, and we'll get right to you when that portion comes. And now I'm going to introduce our panelists, Stephanie, and then from there I'll share some links to some content from Stephanie's work and current news, and then we'll get started. Stéphanie Solinas explores the thinking process involved in the act of seeing and the weaving of the visible and the invisible, of science and belief, of the dynamic between the self and the other, which shapes identities. Her field of investigation extends from the 19th century to the 21st century, from the birth of photography to artificial intelligence. Solinas has a graduate in photography from the INS Louis Lumière in Paris and a PhD in visual arts at Panthéon-Sorbonne University. Solinas was artist residence at Villa Medici, French Academy in Rome from 2017 to 2018, and at Headland Center for the Arts in San Francisco from 2018 to 2019. Solinas is professor of photography at École du Beaux Arts in Rouen-le-Havre and at Institute of Political Science in Paris. She published books Dominique Lambourg, Sans titre, M. Berthelon, Déserteur, Guide du Point, and Lucille Lamont. Her work is part of the private and public collections of SF MoMA, Pier 24, Centre National des Arts Plastiques, Bibliothèque Nationale de France, and others. I'm adding in the chat some links from Stephanie's practice, again, some content from her current news, and some more information about PACALE and where to learn about membership and events. And I will hop on over to Stephanie. Stephanie, I'll hop in and add questions as you go, and I will see you later.
Thank you, Bailey. Thank you. Hello, everybody. So I am speaking to you tonight for me, today for you from Rome, where I am here as a resident for 1 month, working on a project that I developed here a few years ago. I will tell you more about that later. But for today, I'd like to first speak about in details of my work Sans titre Monsieur Bertillon, which is now exhibited at the Getty in the now 29th Century Photography Now exhibition. Then in a second time, I would like to show you two works, two previous work that I did. One is Tré and the other one is Dominique Lambert. And to continue this topic of identity that I developed with Sans titre Monsieur Bertillon. And the third and last part, I will present you the continuation of these questions through my ongoing research since 2014, still between science and belief, which is on 3 territories of the world, like Iceland, Italy, and the west coast of the US. So I will share my screen with you. Okay. Where is it? Let me. Voilà. I don't see my screen. Sorry to share. Voilà, it's here. So. Okay, is that good? Do you see the images?
Perfect, Stephanie. We're good.
Okay, thank you. That's good. So the question that is going through all my work is really this very simple question, like who we are, what are we made of? And on one part, we have our bodies that are concrete, observable and tangible, while our memories, our thoughts, our feelings, our deceased friends, or ancestors, the generations before us, which also constitutes us, are intangible. And so to explore our dual nature, I anchor my work into photography in regard considering its own dual nature that is recognized since its invention, because since 19th century, photography has been used as a scientific tool, as an objective tool, used to better see, but also at the same time, it was also used as a tool to materialize ghosts, to open doors to the invisible. So my work is really in between these two aspects of ourselves and these two aspects of photography. So working on the question of identity, of course, I very soon met the figure of Alphonse Bertillon, which is the beginning, the anchor of the work that is presented now at the Getty. So who is Alphonse Bertillon? Who is Monsieur Bertillon? The work is called Sans titre Monsieur Bertillon. So who is Monsieur Bertillon? Monsieur Bertillon is Alphonse Bertillon, who is the inventor of forensics and anthropometry, who created in at the end of the 19th century in Paris an identification system that greatly involved the photographic portrait. First, it was imposed on the bodies of criminals, but progressively it was applied to the whole society in France and abroad. And for example, in the US, the official adoption was in 1896 by the New York Police Department. They decided to start to use the Bertillon's method for identifying criminals. Alphonse Bertillon was born in Paris in 1853, to an illustrious family of scholars, recognized as pioneers of anthropological and social sciences. Alphonse Bertillon was was a mediocre student. And it's really on the referral of his father that he joined the Prefecture of Police of Paris at the age of 26. And he started to work there as an office clerk, in charge of setting up the files of criminals. And while he was doing that, he quickly realized that the alphabetical system that was in use then and that was used to classify the photographs that were already done, it was inefficient. So he decided to create a new system to organize these photographs. And it's really, I can say, like, it's really like hunted by the anthropological and statistical work, which constitutes his home environment. Within a decade, he implemented the foundation of an intellectual revolution, transforming police work for a long time. So his system, his identification system, is called Bertillonnage, and it emerged from the need to identify repeat offenders after the red hot iron was abolished in 1832. It was envisioned as the equivalent of this indelible mark, but without torture, to quote Alphonse Bertillon. And doing that, and it's also why Bertillon is admissible in the history of representing identity, it's because while he was doing that, actually he placed the body at the center of the representation of identity. And so it was really the beginning of the age of biometrics. So the system of Alphonse Bertillon is based on establishing individual files of the offenders, comprising 4 elements, 3 at the beginning. The first one is 12 bone measures. Then you have all the description of the distinguished marks, the beauty marks, the tattoo, the nevus, everything on a body that is specific to the body, not in comparison to the neutral body that would be the body of the average man. And then there is the photograph of the face and the profile. So it's not only one photograph that is used to represent identity, according to Alphonse Bertillon, but it's 2 photographs. And then a few years later, he will add the fingerprints on the file. So he started this method at the service de l'identité judiciaire in Paris, at the Préfecture de Police de Paris. He had 3 months to test his methods, and the last day of the 3 months, he did the first, he was able to recognize for the first time, thanks to his system, a repeat offender. So then he was allowed to install officially his system at the Préfecture de Police de Paris. And so in 1883, he created the Service de l'identité judiciaire at Préfecture de Police de Paris with 3 departments. So there were the Department of Measurement, the Department of Photography installed over the roof of the Préfecture de Police de Paris to benefit from the daylight under the roof at the higher level of the building. And the third department from the Service de l'identité judiciaire, it's called les sommiers judiciaires, which is all the previous files that were created, that have been done on the previous repeat offender. And that's really the core also of his system, because without it, the system could not function. And it's really the beginning of database. Of course, Bertillon decided to use photography because for him, the time he was living and the family that he had, for him, photography was a scientific tool, was a tool to better see. And so that's why he decided to use photography. But while he used it, he soon realized that that the trust that he had in photography was not as direct as he thought it would be. So what he did is trying to rationalize photography on the two sides of the moment of the shooting, meaning that he wrote a book, like a 200-page book, to explain in details how to take a photograph, as it could be considered as a document used to for photography, for signalétic photography. And so he decided, like he dogmatized the size of the picture, where the light has to come from, the reduction of the body. And so it took him 200 pages to do that. And for me, it's really the sign that photography cannot be in itself a trustable document, at least in this context. And first, the second thing that he did is, after the moment of the shooting, he realized that on the same picture, two police officers didn't see the same thing. So what he tried to do is to rationalize photography using language. So he created a method which is called portrait parlé, spoken portrait, to learn to the police officer to see a photograph and to associate a photograph with a specific word, and to try to reduce the meaning of photography by words, by language. So the idea that is behind my work, Sans titre, Monsieur Bertillon, is to implement the identification system on its very own inventor. And this work for me is really an attempt to access his identity through measurement, through photography and descriptive words, but on a missing body, because of course, Bertillon died in 1914. So my work, Sans titre, Monsieur Bertillon, is composed of different elements. So in the Getty, you can see the sculpture, Sans titre, Monsieur Bertillon, deux faces, like two faces. So it's a work that emerges from Alphonse Bertillon double photographic portrait that I ran to a software designated to perform facial analysis that was developed at that time by the University of Cambridge. So doing that, I produced a 3D representation, three-dimensional interpretation in a paper that then I could cut and glue and fold to recreate the face of Alphonse Bertillon at the scale of his face, and to meet him for the first time. And the particularity of this mask, of this paper mask, is the fact that, of course, you have his face outside of the mask. I mean, on this part of the mask, but you also have his face inside of the mask. And for me, I liked the idea that Bertillon could see like all around. And
Stephanie, I have a quick question for you.
Yes, tell me.
Can you speak a little bit more in depth about using that tool that you generated the 3D rendering from at Cambridge? Can you speak about your process with actually engaging with that tool?
Yeah, sure. So the tool worked with two images. So one image from the face and one image from the profile to have the shape of the face. And so I took the two images that Bertillon, because to promote his system during Bertillon at different points of his life, has been photographed and has realized files with him on the file. So I took the file from him from 1893, and I recolorized them following the elements and the instruction, I mean the info that were on the file.
Right.
And I recolorized them, and then these are these two images that I ran to through the software. And so the software at the end, what it gives me, it's the face of a shape, but flat. And you have to reconstruct then after, like with cutting the paper and giving the shape again. And you have like a system of numbers that you can connect. So that's, yeah, for me, that's.
I love that. I love that reinterpretation of the actual material and dimensionality. I think that's brilliant. Yeah. So thank you so much for engaging that. I wanted to hear more about that.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Yeah. And yeah, maybe I should, because on the, I also choose this specific file of Alphonse Bertillon because on this file, you can see that in the left corner is added Monsieur Bertillon, like it's handwritten and it's written Monsieur Bertillon. And for me, this mark of this special treatment reserved to this file, despite its standard appearance reveals for me the tension between the collective and the individual, the power at play in any representation of identity. And that's why I gave this artwork this name, Monsieur Bertillon, because it was the name that was added on the file. And of course, I was driven, like doing this mask, I was driven by the idea that the face of the one that who is responsible for us to be photographed, to be obliged to be photographed, to be allowed to exist in society. I say that because the ID pictures that we do today in their shape and in their use are the direct heritage of what Alphonse Bertillon invented at the end of the 19th century. So I like the idea that the one who, because of him, we have to be photographed to live in society. I like the idea that his face could become a mask under which we can hide. So Alphonse Bertillon, Sans-titre Monsieur Bertillon, is also a series of pictures, a series of 23 photographs that is called, the series is called Sans-titre Monsieur Bertillon, Vie d'Alphonse Bertillon, Life of Alphonse Bertillon. And the 33 pictures, they represent various sites that played a significant role in the life and career of Alphonse Bertillon. And so I said the idea was to apply his system to a missing body. So I went to these places and I photographed them as a crime scene. And so, for example, to identify these places, I worked with on the basis of the biography of Alphonse Bertillon, Life of Alphonse Bertillon, that was written by his niece, Suzanne Bertillon, in 1941. And so I went to these places to photograph them. And for example, here you have the crossroad of Rue de Rivoli and Rue des Pyramides, where he met his future wife that was going to play an important role in the recognition of Alphonse Bertillon's methods because of her very clean and neat handwriting that she had. And she helped him to in his system. Here, for example, you have I can read it. Let me see the time. Yeah, I can read it. No, I won't read it because it's going to be too long, but it's the entrance of the apartment of his grandparents. And so in their apartments, there were always like the scientists of their times. And one day there was the Dr. Le Tourneau, who was a phrenologist. So this pseudoscience where you can you put your hand on the crane on the head of someone, and you can know his inside, you can know his character just by touching the head, the crane. And that day, the Doctor Le Tourneau, he touched the head of the little Alphonse Bertillon, and he said he had a methodical, precise mind, and he said, as for Alphonse, he added, besides the bump for classification, he possesses a sense of the series. He will be an orderly, meticulous boy. Here it's the depot where he did his first, where he tested his methods for the first time. And here is today in Paris, there is a street that is called Rue Monsieur Bertillon. So it's in the 15th arrondissement in Paris. I would like also to mention the book, Sans titre Monsieur Bertillon, so the book, because it's also an important part of this work, because in the book, so you can find, just what I forgot to mention, which is very important for this series of images. So I said that they are based on the book by Suzanne Bertillon, but when I show these images and like they are presented at the Getty, you don't have access to the text. For me, the text has to be an elusive element of the work. So I transformed these images in spoken images, like the spoken portrait of Alphonse Bertillon. They are spoken images because you have a cask, an audio that you can hear in front of the image, and the voice, the recording of the reading of the extract of the Suzanne Bertillon book give the auditor, like the viewer, the clues of how to look at these pictures, meaning like the fact that you have access to some info about this place is part of the way you are receiving the images, and is going to, in my way, it's going to act on the way we are looking at the picture. So I'm going back to the book, and what I wanted to say is that in the book you have all the elements that I mentioned previously, like the mask and the pictures and the text. But what is important for me in the book is the fact that its meaning is to multiply the face of Alphonse Bertillon, because it's a book that you can cut. You can cut all the first pages of the book, the first 23 pages of the book, and where you have all the elements that you can see here on the left of the image on the screen. You can cut them. So you cut your book, you can cut them, you can fold them, you can glue them, and then you recreate for yourself the face of Alphonse Bertillon. Now, of course, it's not the face, it's just the face outside, it's not the face inside, but you can have as a reader your own experience of the face of Alphonse Bertillon, and you can hide behind this mask and behind his face. And doing that, of course, it changes the cover of the book, that transforms from the part of his face, which is his eye, as you can see. And then once the book is cut, once the mask is done, then the new cover that you have is the two images that were the basis of the whole process that I used to in the software and to create the mask. So here it's a picture of the limited edition of the book. So we did that with RVB Books. So it comes with the face, the mask already mounted. And there is a little video that exists, which is like a user's guide, and it's the 5 hour of the process that is reduced as a 3 minutes 3-minute video where you can see the birth of Alphonse Bertillon. I mean the paper identity of Alphonse Bertillon. So it's me cutting the book and doing all the steps to recreate Alphonse Bertillon's face. Here are some images of where Alphonse Bertillon was presented. He was at the, I did a show at the Frankel Lab in 2017. So he was in the cover of the gallery. And he was also presented at the Foam Museum in Amsterdam. And that's the end of the presentation of the sans titre Monsieur Bertillon work. And I will now, as I said in the introduction, I will now present briefly 2 other projects that are driven by the same interest that I have. And I say that the interest that I have for the anonymous more than the outstanding in this topic of the representation of identity. And it's a specification that I borrow to Giorgio Agamben, the philosopher. He is speaking about the whatever singularities. Conceiving this the individual as element of modern society. And in the 2 works that I am going to present you, I am also investigating the issue of their identity in a reflection of on individual identity and photographic image and on the society which developed them. So the first work that I wanted to briefly mention is a work called Traits, which you can translate as traits and features as well. You can use this term to say the trait du visage, like the features of the face. And it's a series of 60. So it's a presentation here at the SF MoMA in the Constellation exhibition in 2022. And so Trait is a series of 16 pictures. That are retouched with a permanent marker. So I did a series of portraits of very similar young men, and I photographed them with a large format camera. And so there are pictures that are really like you have a lot of details, like you can really precisely see each the color of the eyes and each hair on the face and the like, voilà, you can see all the details. And what I did on this series, so it's large prints, and what I did is to redraw on the print directly by hand, redraw the elements that we would describe if we needed to describe this person. So it's the color of the hair and the color of the eyes and the clothing that they are wearing. And doing that by willing to see better, this work is really about, it leads to an inevitable loss of information, a simplification that is distorting reality and erasing its complexity. And for me, it's really what Alfred Doblin is describing in the introduction that he did of the book of Auguste Sander, Faces of Our Time, 60 portraits of 20th century German. Alfred Doblin is speaking about lamination, which is operated on individuals by representation. So, yeah, it's a series of 16 portraits. And the second work that I wanted to mention here, after Sans titre Monsieur Bertillon, it's a work which is called Dominique Lambert. And Dominique Lambert, it's a study in 6 steps of all the people that are named Dominique Lambert in France. And to do that, I am using the official tools that are in use to represent identity. So what I did for this project that I started in 2004 is to, first, why I choose Dominique Lambert as a study population. I wanted to have both men and women in my study population. And so what I did is that in France, Dominique is the most common name applied to both genders. And it's also the 27th most popular name overall. So what I did is that I associated it with Lambert, which is the 27th most popular surname in France, according to the telephone directory. There are 191 Dominique Lambert in France, so I contacted them all. I wrote to this 191 Dominique Lambert, and I asked them to fill, in France, we call that a Chinese portrait. So it's a way to represent yourself but using words like, if I wear a color, I would be blue. If I wear an animal, I would be a dog. If I wear a song, I would be a song from Jacques Brel. So it's describing yourself using images, using words that are also images. And so a certain amount of Dominique Lambert answered me. And so I will present the 6th step with the example of Dominique Lambert 0001. So this is the portrait chinois that I mentioned. So this is the first step. So this is the answer that I received from Dominique Lambert #1. The second step is that I gathered the committee for the description of the Dominique Lambert, which was composed of a police officer, a psychologist, and a jurist. And their mission was to decide from this portrait if the Dominique Lambert was a man or woman, the age, the kind of hair that they have, the color of their eye, like to be the most precise as possible on the physical aspect of the Dominique Lambert, but only based on this element. So then I have, Voilà. Then I have a little text. So for the committee, #1 is a man. He's 40 years old. He has big eyebrows. His face is kind of like a baby. He's often a bit red. He has a large neck. So with the text, then after I work with a drawing artist, and his mission is to transform the text into a drawing. So giving the first features of the Dominique Lambert. Then with the drawing, I work with Dominique Ledet, inspector at the police prefecture, so in the department that Alphonse Bertillon created in Paris a few decades ago. And so his mission was to transform this drawing into a photographic portrait, but using the photo kit that the official tool that they use at the police station. And then, starting from these portraits, I decided to look for people in reality that were looking like to this portrait to photograph them. And the last step of this chain of representation, it's an envelope containing the passport picture, like the ID pictures of the real Dominique Lambert, the one who filled the Chinese portrait, as we call it. And of course, you cannot open the envelope. I mean, it's in the envelope, it's in a half transparent envelope, so you can see few elements, but of course you don't see the face, so you cannot do the comparison, the actual comparison. So And I did that, like, I got 65 answers of the Chinese portrait to this 65 Dominique Lambert. I asked them to send me an ID picture. I received 20 pictures. So they are the 20 Dominique Lambert from the final collection. For me, it was really important to be exhaustive, like to not, like, to keep them all. And also there is a 21st Dominique Lambert, which is elaborated using the same methods, but based on the most common answers given by the 65 Dominique Lambert who replied the portrait chinois. So 21st Dominique Lambert is the one that is supposed to be the average Dominique Lambert, to represent them all. And so I have a lot to say on this work, but I think I'm gonna hurry a bit if I want to share with you. One thing I want to say about the Dominique Lambert, just one thing, is that for me, it's really in the heritage of Alphonse Bertillon, meaning that, of course, I am using the methods that he invented, and I am working with the people working now in the department that he invented, but also because I am working with everything that he wanted to try to hide in a way in his system, like everything that was for him a problem, that the fact that a representation, it's not a neutral operation, like when you go from one representation to another, of course you transmit information, but in this transmission there is of course a loss of info, but there is also a creation of info. And of course the creation of info was a big problem for him. And for me, this is really, this is a creative tool that I am using. So for me, this work is really like in the direct heritage of his method. So now the third part that I wanted to share with you tonight. So the third part is the three, so since 2014, I am pursuing this question on our identity, on our existence between science and belief. And I am asking these questions. I decided to ask these questions on three territories of the world, three different territories of the world, because these territories, they were allowing me to ask the same questions, but to formulate the questions differently because of the story of the specific history of the place. So I decided to, and of course, it's not exhaustive. Of course, there are a lot of other people in other places in the world that could be studied in that way. But I decided these three places. I could explain why later, maybe. But so there are Iceland, where I have a work which is called the Pourquoi Pas. There is Italy and Vatican, and there is the west coast of the US, as I mentioned. So in Iceland, the work is called Le Pourquoi Pas. And yeah, just to mention on each territory what I did, it's a lot of interviews of people that are allowing me to see better the reality of their territory. And it's places that I identify and where I go because I think it is connected somehow with my research. And this research is the base each time to artworks. That could be installations, that could be photographs, that could be video, that could be sculptures, and that could be also like textbooks. And of course, all these artworks are independent, but of course they are all connected in a way that when you put them together, it draws a territory. So in Iceland, the work that I did there, I called it le pourquoi pas, the why not, because it's in the heritage of the Charcot. Don't know if I open this file now, but Jean-Baptiste Charcot, he was a polar explorer, and he died in the shipwreck of his boat in 1936, 10 kilometers away from Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. And his father was the famous Jean-Martin Charcot from La Salpêtrière, studying hysteria, and he was the first neurologist. So for me, this work is really in the heritage of the Charcot in the way that it's really exploring a physical territory, but the idea is to do that, to explore the territory of the mind. So doing what the son did, to in fact do what the father did. And what I forgot to mention is that the boat of Jean-Baptiste Charcot was called Le Pourquoi Pas, the why not. And in Iceland, the idea was to investigate the invisible realities and the invisible worlds that constitutes Icelandic identity. Meaning that in Iceland, everybody knows someone who saw an elf, and everybody is going to the medium. And also on the scientific side of the research, the fact that if you take two Icelandic people randomly, at the latest, they are connected to the 5th grade. So their genome are really similar. And so I also worked a lot so I worked with mediums, I worked with and geneticists there, especially with a company which is called Decode. And so, yeah, I created, so the whole work, I say it's an archipelago of work that you can see here. And you can see the work exhibited at the Foam Museum in Amsterdam, or at the Gradiva Gallery in Paris, or at the Maison de l'Amérique latine in Paris as well. I will just mention one artwork. This one is called Equivalence. So it's a series of cyanotypes that I did when I was in Iceland, like that. Meaning, like, it's, I worked with a medium and she drew for me a map of elfic presences, like places where we know that there are elves living there. And I went to these places and I wanted to do a picture, to do a photograph, but to be the most close to my subject. And so I decided to use cyanotype, because cyanotype technique, you don't have any lens, you don't have a camera, you do the development with water, so it's very like direct contact. And it's mostly used, of course, everybody knows the Anna Atkins first book, and it's the cyanotype process that I use. So it's often used for 2D object that is turned into an image. So here I wanted to transform a 3D place into a 2D representation. So I went to these places, and what I did is that I put my sensitive paper into the cracks of the rocks. And so that's how I obtained this series of 66 images that are, and that I call equivalence, because I really liked the idea that they are, of course, images of the ground, but they look like images of clouds. And using this title was a way for me to refer to the famous series of Alfred Stieglitz photographing the clouds. And I like the idea that these images could work. They are at the same time proof of something that happened in these specific places, but they are, for me, working like a cloud could work, meaning like if you look at a cloud and you can see sometimes shapes in them, like it's a castle, it's a car, it's a, I don't know, you project what you have in your mind on the cloud. And so this series, and using the title for this series, is of course an invitation to do that, to project your own perception on these shapes. And so there is a book which is a cerebral hike book. Now we find there are the two Charcots, the son and the father, and there is a series of pictures that are generated from a Misty summit. They are it's a series of 13 pictures which are called Mount Analog, and there are 12 pictures of the same summit transformed by photographic processes. And the last image of the series is this image that I took above the fjord where Charcot died in Iceland. So each of this image is the entrance of one of the cerebral hikes. So this one is to enter the hike of creativity. And you are going to say that it's that maybe we don't have the time to continue, or how much time do you have? Yeah,
going on 11 soon, so I want to save some time for some good questions that we have.
Yeah.
So go ahead and finish up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will of course mention the work that I am doing actually, because it's still a work in progress on the west coast of the US. And I was curious about this territory because for me, it was the place where there were that was offering two different ways to develop ourselves. Like, should we develop ourselves with science, with Silicon Valley, with artificial intelligence, with biohacking, with cryonics, with pushing the borders of death, with the transhumanist, and so more on the science side? Or should we develop ourselves with more in a personal development, more like developing the human potential, which is more the words that comes from the Esalen Institute, or so I spent time there, going from the center of the New Age in Sedona to the laboratory in artificial intelligence in Facebook, going from spirit, from belief to science, to, like in Iceland, exploring a territory to explore what we have in our mind. So the art shapes that it takes, it's a series of installation and images and videos. There are 12 of them, the 12 West Coast stations. 6 of them are done so far. I wanted to present this one in details, which is an immersive installation. When you enter a room that was presented at the Jeu de Paume 2 years ago, and you enter this room, and it's a mix of 2 specific moments of my research. One was flying above San Francisco at the end of the day in a six-seat plane, and it was not. I didn't expect that. We didn't know that it was going to happen, but at some point, we were caught into like a sunset on the west and a full moon rising on the east. And so I did pictures. And of course, when I was doing the picture of the moon, I was missing the picture of the sun. And so it's half an hour of pictures, but always like something is missing. And I connected that with the interviews. So some moment of the interviews I did with the founder and with the CIO of the Alcor Institute, which is a cryonics institute in the suburbs of Phoenix. It is a book that is the same material, but presented the experience translated into a book. And I put these images because maybe some of the people that are with us saw it in Paris. I did a reading room for the launch of the book at the Photo Saint-Germain festival. So this is the book that I just released in France, and there is a game, and we will open the game, which is a limited edition of the book, to share the stories that I collected during this research, and it's for 7 players, and we will open the game next fall in Paris at the Jean Quentin-Gauthier Gallery. If some of the people will be in Paris, that would be a pleasure to invite you to this game. And so these are the pieces you play with the game. Just one thing, just with this image, just to speak 2 words about the Italian research that I am doing. So in Italy, my entrance, the subject that I choose to enter this territory was the question of the miracle, which is really a contact between faith and belief, because for a miracle to be recognized as a miracle in the Catholic faith, where I am working, first you have to have a committee of scientists. They have to say, okay, this phenomena, we don't know what it is. It's unexplainable with our knowledge today. We cannot explain it. And when they recognize that they are at the end of rationality, then the church decide to say that it's a miracle, or to not say it's a miracle, like it's a political decision from the church. But it's really like the miracle. It's really a place where it connects. So this is my entrance, and also how we access the invisible of belief, of faith, of spirituality with what we have, meaning our body and our feelings and our senses. And so I am now so I did this work when I was resident for 1 year in Villa Medici, a French academy in Rome. Like in 2018, and I am there invited here now. I am in Rome for 1 month, working on all the interviews that I did when I was there about this subject, to publish in the 3rd book of text. So, voilà. I'll be happy to answer any question that you might have. Sorry, I hope it was not too long, but I wanted to share different aspects of the work that we can speak together.
Stephanie, thank you so much for your presentation. It was wonderful. Everyone that's still with us, thank you so much for staying. I hope that you'll stay for another 5 minutes or so as we hop into some questions. I'm going to jump right in to our first Q&A question from Michael Hawley.
Yeah.
It was referenced when you were first speaking about Bertillon and that project. So that's what he's putting this in context to. It is so interesting that he had to teach people, the police in particular, how to see a photograph and associate it with a physical person, as this action, which seems so obvious today, was entirely new. Do you know if he was aware of Muybridge's work, an artist that was also using images to prove or present evidence? Muybridge, of course, was most interested in motion.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Can you repeat it, please? I'm sorry.
Yes. So Michael's referencing the photographer Muybridge, and he was mentioning how I'll just repeat the question. It's also in the Q&A for you there. So
Oui.
it's so interesting that he had to teach people, the police in particular, how to see a photograph and associate it with a physical person. Do you know if he was aware of Muybridge's work, an artist that was also using images to prove or present evidence?
Yeah, that's interesting. I have no clue about the fact that he never mentioned Muybridge, so I don't know. I don't know if he was aware of that. But I'd like to share with you. I have this little story from Nadar, and I think it can enlighten this question because Nadar in the 19th century, famous photographer recognized for the psychological quality of his portrait. But he was explaining, so he had his studio and people were coming to his studio to be photographed. And there is this little story. I can read it, actually. I have it here. So Nadar explains, such was the one I noticed one afternoon in our hall at the time when the proofs are submitted to our clientele for their review, notably punctual at this daily appointment. Among the small groups, all absorbed by their respective proofs, I would go from one to another, giving my advice. When I came to that one, and you, sir, would you like me to help you to be critical? First of all, how do you find yourself? Not bad, sir. I'm satisfied. Let me see. I look at the two proofs. I raise my eyes on the model. It was the proof of someone else that he was holding in his hand and with which he was satisfied. Just to say that it's unbelievable for us that are so used to the selfies and to see our own face. And I mean, it was not that obvious to recognize oneself on a photograph. So I guess that Bertillon, who was doing his work at that time, he was really like inside this this new way of look at things with photography. And also the fact that Bertillon, for him, in his system, what was important, the scientific aspect of photography is really in the profile, not in the face. For him, the photography of the face is not good to be, but as you can see, it's the only photographic, the only side that we kept, that we still have today. And what he recognized for the face portrait and why he kept it in his system is the fact that it's the best for witnesses to be recognized. So that's why the face portrait, it contains already in itself the gaze of the other. Like it's for the other that you have the portrait of the face.
I love that answer that you just gave. That was pretty in-depth, and I appreciate that, Stephanie. Good question there, Michael. Stephanie, I also had one more question that I really want to pose to you, which was this idea of translation. We had mentioned, you had talked about early on, and we had talked previously too about the multitudes of images, but also copying and recreating imaging, refiguring images. So I wanted to ask you, how do you consider a concept of translation of space, identity, memory, histories? How do you consider that concept present in your practice? Do you think of the tools or the methods or the recurring series of any of your works as types of translations of those things?
I would say that what I mentioned for the Dominique Lambert work, like going from one drawing to a photo fit and from one photo fit to a photograph, and this is a translation. This is and as I mentioned, of course, you transmit something that is true, but you lose and you create. And by nature, identity, it's not something that is here that you can see directly. You have to use representation to access to this part of who we are. And the thing is, by nature, a representation is there is a gap between an object and its representation by nature. So it means, like, by nature, there is a gap between our identity and its representation, and between an individual and its identity. So between an individual and its identity. And of course, all my work is trying to investigate what is happening in this gap, sorry, between an individual and his or her identity.
Yeah, and then quickly I want to jump in because you just made that point. You had mentioned earlier an element of language to one of your pieces or one of your series. An element of language is being elusive.
Oui.
Can you talk more about that? I like this concept that you kind of engaged when you said that, but can you talk about it more broadly? Is the elements of language and image together and the elusive nature of the composite of the two?
Yeah. I think I mentioned it. I don't remember when I mentioned it, but I think it was for Bertillon, trying to capture to not be able to record something as he wanted. But it's also something, it's a phenomena that is, and that's why I like also these words, because it's a phenomena that is that exists in how do you call that? Psi phenomena. Do you use this term like with a poltergeist or a ghost or this kind of phenomena? They say it is elusive, and you cannot. I'm sorry, in French, it's un champ de spécularité totale. If you use, they say that if you have a ghost in a house, what you do is that you take a camera, photographic camera, and you put it in front of a mirror, and then it's a champ de spécularité absolu. Like you see, there is no place you cannot see in this space. Right. You understand? And in the space, there will be no more ghost phenomena, or nothing will not happen anymore because you have built that. But meaning these phenomena are elusive, that you cannot, it's not possible. It's in the, it's weird to say that, but it's in the DNA of the phenomena that it's elusive, like it's something. And it's also, I think it's also something that we can use. Sometimes I think that a portrait is elusive. A portrait is a diversion. A portrait is something that is so obvious that in fact it hides a lot. It hides more than it shows. And and of course what I try to access in my work is to access to all that escape from the direct representation, all that is around.
Absolutely. I thank you for that. I fully understand what you're saying. And then one last question I have for you here, Stephanie, and then we'll close up, because I thank you everyone for sticking with us here. But this is more in general. I said your practice is so heavily based in research, archives, and the use of temporal material. Can you tell us more about your practice in relation to research and how that extends to your work further, more objectively?
I would say that there are many aspects. I can answer telling you that that first it's a pourquoi pas, it's a why not. It's taking all different facts that are here that people are talking about on the scientific side, but also on the more elusive side, and taking them into account. So starting from material that are testimonies, that are things that are that we can share. And also, this is the second aspect of the thing, and that's why I am using so much the analogy also of geography, because the subjects I am interested in, it's something that is not here, that is not tangible, that is, and so I think we need a common ground to be able then to go together. When I say together, I am speaking of me and my the person I interview, and me and the viewers. You know, to go together to a place we cannot see, but let's start from a common ground. And so I would say that the importance for me and in my work of the study of the facts, of interviewing people and trying to be as close as their as what they say, is really this concern of being in something that we can share, that we can all see, that we can have there, and starting from that, because of course what we cannot see is also part of our reality. But so we start from something that we can see to access that. I mean, I am in Rome. There are 800 church. I mean, the God is not visible, but it acts in reality. I mean, there are churches. There are something concrete, you know, like something yeah, I'm not sure if I mean, yeah, you understand what I mean, like, and all this, like when I was in Iceland, speaking about elves, like they said like some people are seeing elves, some people don't, but in Iceland you have roads that are displaced. Can we say that? Like the construction of the road is changed because people are saying like here there is a village of elves. So like it's concrete. It's something that is part of our unquestionable reality.
Yes. No, and I also love how you had mentioned the witness. So you're kind of playing back into that collective body and how there's the presence and the elements that can't be witnessed, but they're still as present, right? Even if they're intangible. And I think quite often archival material, temporal material by nature is that way, of course. Thank you so much. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to add, like it's a continuum as well, because I was thinking about Alphonse Bertillon. So he is for sure like really anchored into the idea that photography is a scientific tool, but at the same time and at the same period of time, there is also this will to better see, like to see on the face, like if you continue on the same, like the idea to see on the face of someone that he is guilty or not, like the natural born criminal. At the same time, you have Cesare Lombroso in Italy. And so it's a continuum between, I want to see better what is in front of me, but also it contains, of course, what we believe or it changes our gaze, so it has an effect on reality in that way. So I just wanted to mention that.
Photography, it goes into this whole idea of mapping and place, and brilliant, Stephanie. I could talk to you about this for quite some time, and I'm sure we will have more conversations in the future.
With pleasure.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation and conversation today, and thank you to our audience for sticking with us. 13 minutes past. We very much value you, and that was a wonderful conversation we had. So again, everyone, thank you again. It's Thursday. Have a good rest of your day. Stephanie, have a good evening. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Goodbye.
Final word, Stephanie?
Yeah.
Do you have any parting words to the audience or anything you'd like to say?
No, I just wanted to thank you for your attention, and thank you for sharing this moment together.
All right, everyone. Thank you for your lovely notes in the comments there. Stephanie, you've got wonderful comments here. Thank you, everyone, for your notes. And until next time.